Thank you for staying and welcome back. Business operators in the Ashanti region are concerned about what they say is the over-concentration of foreign direct investment in the national capital, Accra. A recent research conducted by the Ghana Investment Promotion Center, GIPC, points infrastructure and proximity to ports as some of the reasons for this development. Analysts say businesses outside Accra will continue to struggle until appropriate measures are put in place to reverse the trend. This is a report from Love FM's Prince Appiah.
Figures from Ghana Investment Promotion Center indicate foreign direct investment reduced from $2,388 million in 2014 to $2,379 million last year. Greater Accra had the highest share of 45 joint ventures, followed by Western Regions 7 and 2 each for Ashanti, Central and Eastern. Out of 20 joint venture businesses registered with GIPC between January and June this year, 15 are in Accra. Robert Kwachin Ketia is former chairman of Ashanti and Bonohafo Zone of the Association of Ghana Industries. He catalogues disadvantages to businesses in the regions.
We are at a disadvantage. One, I'll give you a scenario. Let's assume that a company involves in processing of soya beans in Kumasi or another region, and that company relies on loans, which means they want to pay interest rate, and the interest rate will have to be added to the cost of production. The one in Accra doing the same business maybe happens to have a foreign direct investor. The foreign direct investor is coming with buy shares, so you don't have to pay interest. Two, like I said earlier on, they bring in new technologies. Three, they bring in expertise. So we realize that though that kind of company will always be better than you. So if it happens to, it remains the same as it is now, automatically always Accra, Greater Accra will be having all the bigger and growing companies and profitable companies than all the other regions.
GIPC is currently on an investment sensitization tour of Ashanti region. It is dubbed industrialization through small and medium enterprises, promotion and making available land for investment purposes.
So that report was from our Ashanti regional correspondent, Prince Appiah. Now, the IMF is warning that current challenges facing the economy are far from over because of issues with revenue and expenditure. These concerns were captured in the statement issued by the fund after approving some $116 million for Ghana. Now, George Wiafe has been studying the document and has joined me right here in the studio to give us a summary and to answer a few questions. George, how is it?
We're managing by the grace of God. And what about you?
I'm fine. Now, what's the document actually pointing to?
Well, if you're going through the statement that the IMF released just after approving that $160 million, well, they admit in the statement that government has indeed made some progress. But they're talking about the fact that there are issues with expenditure and revenue. Especially going into an election season, they think that there are issues with expenditure in relation to the wage bill, and also an expenditure in other issues that government has to, or commitment that government has to deal with. And therefore, if you look at all these things, revenue is not picking up, and they believe that it means that there are challenges ahead for us in the economy, and therefore, a lot of things that we have to do. Therefore, we shouldn't think that the turnaround has automatically taken place, and therefore, we can raise our hands up and think that everything is over for us.
Now, sometimes I tend to think that the IMF is being too hard on the country. I mean, passing us, and then on the other hand, saying that, hey, it's not over yet. I mean, what do you have to say?
But can you situate this comment with what other independent institutions have said? ISE have made a similar comment. They said that the economy is sick and fragile. You engage some other independent economists, and it also paints a picture that we are not out of the woods yet with respect to the challenges facing the economy, expanding the economy, growing. The Statistical Service recently released the GDP estimate, and the point that the economy is slowing down because of development on the Jubilee field and the doom so.
Exactly.
So you want to situate most of these comments with what other independent actors have said about the economy. how things are faring, how what we need to do. It's about the expenditure. I mean, the argument here is that, listen, spend what you bring in as revenue. So if you want to spend, spend. If revenue is doing very well, nobody has a problem with you shooting up your expenditure. And even with this approval that was given, we understand there were some waivers given to government. So even if it hadn't been the waivers, you couldn't have gotten this money as well. And going into an election period, the externalities and the indication that it was sent outside, you don't want to do anything to rock the boat. And maybe that was why they gave the approval to them for the money to come in.
But ironically, government keeps telling us that we pass it and everything is fine and we are...
Turnaround strategy is working.
Exactly. I mean,
well, turnaround strategy has made some improvement. I mean, the statement itself admits that you're making some progress when it comes to trying to balance your expenditure with revenue. In terms of overruns, there are some progress that are being made. But the fund is kind of a little bit skeptical that, listen, despite these progress, the threats are still there. Maybe you have to fast-track the process a little bit in trying to contain your expenditure. If you're having problems with containing your expenditure, then you need to expand the revenue base. So you can bring in more revenue.
It's recommending expansion of the tax base. Is that feasible?
Well, it's a very, very difficult thing because going into an election season, I don't think that you'll be prepared to, when government tells you to pay more taxes. What are you going to do about that one? What are some of the other administrative measures that government can institute to improve the tax? Sometimes you look at the fact that property rate. There are a lot of houses in prime residential areas that are not paying the tax. So it's not necessarily new taxes per se, but improving the administration of these taxes. That could go a long way to bring in more revenue to the country. So it's not just about taking the rate. So be a little bit more prudent when it comes to collection of these taxes. They also spoke about the Bank of Ghana Act, that maybe we need to take a second look at basically the bit that talked about the fact that government needs to take a second look at going to the bank to borrow, the zero financing. There are issues with some banks that we understand are on the verge of going down. Can we improve their financial situation? Some SOEs who are seriously indebted to these banks, can you make sure that they pay? So all these things are challenges that we've had over and over and over again. So whilst you want to celebrate that you've made some progress, I mean, obviously, if you're going from 1 to 10 and you move from 1 to 3 or 4, that's a progress. But don't be too excited about moving from 1 to 3. That push a little bit harder, and you can even get to 7 or 9.
Now, George, before you go, ratings agency Fitch is also projecting that the public debt will witness some significant increase in the coming months.
Well, they are basing this projection on what has happened or what happened in 2012. And they are still skeptical about the assurance from government that basically they're going to rein in expenditure in the next 3 or 2 months. But they think that the elections is still a threat, and therefore we'll still see the debt levels going up and possibly hit 69 by December this year. But the elections are still the hidden hand on the stability of the economy that could actually scuttle everything for us.
Ironically, my next story is also saying that the World Bank says the government end-of-year growth projection is not out of place at all. Very, very interesting. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Yafi.
All right, so let's catch you. All right, so the World Bank is now saying that it does not think that government's end-of-year growth projection is out of place. Some economists have argued that looking at the current challenges facing the economy, government might not meet its end-of-year target of 4.8%. But speaking to Joy Business after the launch of its African Pulse report, which looks at the growth of all African countries, lead economist at the World Bank, Errol Graham, says the current policies that government is implementing makes the target achievable.
To the report, general economic growth in the sub-Saharan African region is expected to drop to 1.6% in 2016, from 3% in 2015, being the lowest in 2 decades. In the case of Ghana, despite economic growth for the second quarter of this year slowing to 2.5%, World Bank lead economist Errol Graham says government's end-of-year projection is not out of place.
Yeah, I think we have to look back at the shock that Ghana experienced, part of which comes from the reduction in oil prices. And I think in a way, the adjustment in the exchange rate, in the cedi, allowed Ghana to buffer some of those shocks. In other countries where the exchange rate hasn't adjusted, we've seen more steep decline in growth, in some cases even contraction in the economy. What we've seen since then, in 2015, Ghana grew at around 4%, which is fairly reasonable considering the shock that it has gone through. In the first few quarters, we've seen, for the first quarter, growth was fairly strong, around 4%. For the second quarter, because of the shock to oil production, we saw a slight decline. But I think it's not unreasonable to think that Ghana would likely grow at around 4% again for 3.5% to 4% for the year.
In terms of growth performance among 45 countries that were sampled by the World Bank, Ghana was classified to be a medium performer with strong signs of growth in the year 2017.
Now, companies that have failed to renew their businesses at the Registrar General's Department in their last financial year or more have only till Monday, October 3 to do so or pay a fine of 300 Ghana cedis every day of default. This is one of two major provisions in the Companies Act the Registrar General is enforcing from next week. There's more in this report.
To the Companies Act, Act 179, already registered businesses are to file their annual reports within 3 months after their financial year, and for newly registered firms, 1.5 years after incorporation at a fee of 50 Ghana cedis. The Acting Registrar General, Jemima Oware, however, explains to Joy Business this has over the years not been complied with, thus necessitating the directive.
So in the past, what will happen is you get the company inspectors writing to you, reminding you that you're supposed to file your annual return. Yeah. So they'll just remind you, and then once a while, when we come out with these notices, you find long lines, people rushing to come and file their returns. But this time round, I think it's gone on for too long. We have to just go by the law. And it hurts me. It really does hurt me, because the law is quite punitive. It says if you fail to do this within this time specified, you pay a penalty of 25 penalty units. And when we go to the Interpretation Act, a penalty unit is 12 Ghana cedis. So calculating that comes to 300 Ghana cedis for every day that the default continues. And it's even onerous on me, even as I'm saying this, because I know that it's not that easy for businesses. That is why we started talking about this from last year. You see, so what's going to happen is from the 3rd of October, apart from what you normally pay for backlog, maybe 6 years or 7 years or 8 years, and each year is just 50 Ghana cedis. So if, let's say, you have 4 years, backlog, it's just 200 Ghana cedis. So now you're going to have 300 Ghana cedis added on every day, and I'm just worried for businesses.
The Registrar General is therefore urging companies to, as soon as possible, update their records in the new electronic database and renew their businesses or file of annual returns for the number of years in default. Also, beginning next Monday, any member of a company that may want to undertake share transfer or related activity would have to first meet certain key conditions.
From 3rd of October, when you come in to register share transfer instruments, there must at least be proof that the company has recognized you as a shareholder. They've either given you a share certificate, so would request maybe a photocopy of that. That's evidence. There must, if you don't have a share certificate, at least a copy of the entry in the register of members. At least that would suffice. Or a board resolution confirming that indeed a certain number of shares have been issued to you for a certain consideration.
Officers appointed by the companies that still opt to register their share transactions with the Registrar General's Department in between the filing of their last annual return and the next can do so only after they have complied with the requirements.
It's on the marketplace. We're taking a short break here. More coming up. Don't go away. Thanks for staying. Welcome back. Now, beginning tomorrow, Saturday, October 1, airfares are likely to see an increase of $10 for passengers and $20 per car. This is a result of the introduction of safety charge by the Ghana Civil Aviation Authority. The move has become necessary following moves by the authority to decouple its air navigation services and regulatory functions. So what does this decoupling entail, and why has it triggered the introduction of the safety charge? Sheila Tamaklo reports.
The initiative to decouple air navigation services and aviation regulation would primarily see the Ghana Civil Aviation Authority hand over air traffic management role to a new independent entity and focus on its core regulatory function. The authority is working to receive the requisite legal backing for this by June next year for onward implementation. The Director General of the Ghana Civil Aviation Authority, Simon Alote, says they have advanced moves to ensure smooth implementation.
The Ghana Civil Aviation Authority, as it is currently structured, has two units. We have the regulator and the air navigation services unit. So the CAA makes all the regulations and provides safety and security oversight for various operators, airlines, service providers in the aviation industry. Now, the Air Navigation Services Unit or Air Traffic Services section provides air traffic services to airlines to ensure that it is safe to fly. So basically, the coupling is to separate the two units. It will be a full structural organizational separation. That means two entities will be created out of the current entity, two autonomous entities. So the committee has started its work. The independent consultant will come on board before the end of the year, and we are given a deadline of mid-June 2017, by June next year, for the committee to finish its report, submit to the management. The board of directors will review it, after which it will escalate to the Ministry of Transport for their review and approval. So from the ministry level, it will go up to, we'll have to get legislative approval. So it goes through the AG's, Attorney General's Department, to Cabinet, and finally to Parliament for the proposed decoupling to take effect.
The Civil Air Navigation Services Organization Council has lauded Ghana for the move. According to the Director General of the Ghana Civil Aviation Authority, the decoupling would see the introduction of a safety charge on each international flight ticket purchased from October 1. That is $10 for passengers and $20 for cargo, to essentially support the authority financially after the decoupling. So will it lead to an increase in airfares, and what more do passengers need to know about the introduction of the safety charge?
As part of the broader scheme of the decoupling, we had approval from the government to implement a safety charge to support the CAA's activities. So primarily, the Civil Aviation Authority after decoupling will be funded from the aviation safety charge. There are two components of the aviation safety charge. There is a charge for passenger and a charge for cargo. The safety charge for passenger is on international flights, it's at $10 either way. Going out, you pay $10. Coming in, you pay $10. For cargo, is $20 per ton, per 1,000 kilograms. From 1st October, like I said, it will be implemented, and IATA has already given us a code for the safety charge, which will reflect on tickets purchased after the 15th of September for travels from or beyond 1st October. So if you buy a ticket now, and you are not traveling in September, and you are traveling in October, you'll see a code, G5, which is a safety charge for Ghana, and it will indicate $10 either direction.
So what do air passengers make of the introduction of the safety charge?
Okay, the point is that money cannot buy life, you understand? So if you are traveling, you are getting the security and protection just for $10. Me, Eric, I will pay. But I don't, in life you have individual differences. Somebody may also not like to pay. But the question I'm asking is, without the $10, are they giving us better service? That's the question that I want the aviation people to answer before we all pay the $10.
Well, it's part of what we pay for when you buy your ticket. For me, I'm a Nigerian, and that was part of the taxes I paid for coming to Ghana. So, and anytime you travel, there's always safety and some other charges, including bags. For most countries you go to, you get charged for that. So I don't know. But the price is what I don't know. I don't live here, so I don't know what $10 would be to an average traveler in Ghana. If it's going to be a lot or it's going to be okay with them.
Right there. So from tomorrow, $10 extra charge for flying. Now, the failure of players in the housing and hospitality industry to, to deploy information communication technology is contributing to the slow growth of their businesses. That is the assertion of the general manager of MTN Business, Samuel Ado. He's urging business owners in those sectors to explore ICT, since it would help them appreciate new trends and enable their businesses to grow a little faster. Mr. Ado spoke to Joy Business at MTN's Housing and Hospitality Fair, which brought together various stakeholders in the two industries.
MTN Business has a vision of enabling companies to grow through providing them ICT solutions. Now, we've scanned the Ghanaian economy landscape, and we've noticed that there is a key industry, the housing industry, which needs to grow a little faster than it is today to help the total economy to grow. And indeed, if you listen to world authorities, and they all tell us that ICT is a key contributor to developing countries. We have situations like Rwanda and elsewhere, which have, by the introduction of ICT, been able to develop the economy. So this fair is supposed to help the housing industry appreciate the new trends, the way that they can deploy technologies, they can deploy ICT to further grow their business much rapidly, and so that together as a country we can all develop. And what MTN brings to the table is the provision of internet. We have given Ghanaians 4G today. And so with 4G, we have moved people from just voice communication into the whole area of video communication. The other thing that is new is our fiber to the home, fiber to the office. With fiber, there's a bigger capacity. So now hotels, houses can do much, much more than they can do. And with once, you see, we want Ghanaians to see internet as a utility. Just as you plan to have water, electricity, etc., you plan to have internet. Once your house or facility is internet enabled, the opportunities are endless. You can use internet to manage your utilities. You can use internet to manage security. You can use internet to manage entertainment. Everything that you do within that industry, you can use internet.
All right, so that's how we wrap up on today's edition of The Marketplace. And thank you very much for joining me from Monday to Friday. Thank you once again, and hope you join me again same time on Monday for another interesting package. My name is Emmanuel Abuaji-Biafi. Meantime, you can stay interactive with us at Joy Business GH is our Twitter handle. Joy Business is our Facebook page. And for more business news, log on to myjoyonline.com/business. Good afternoon and keep watching.